Hello and welcome to the Long Talk on New Zealand Sport Radio, our first long-form interview, and I'm very happy to welcome Dwayne Polataivao. As I butcher it again, I'm sorry, sir. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to the show.
So, this is obviously for people who were in COVID-19 times. Now you were down you were playing for the Utah Warriors over in the States on the Major League Rugby, but you're back in New Zealand now, all nice and safe, and just finishing up your quarantine period.
Yeah, that's it, Paul. So just on our last day of quarantine, 14 days. So looking forward to heading home to our house and just linking up with our little bubble, our family. So looking forward to going home.
So, actually, so you're not even in your bubble yet. So this is, wow. For those of us, I mean, I'm now in, towards the end of week one of isolation, but I've always been in my bubble, which is good, and I can also go to the supermarket. I guess you're not even allowed to do that. You have to have deliveries and that kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. That's it. So it's just been me and my wife here in up north in Auckland. So, yeah, looking forward to going to see the mother-in-law and also sister-in-law as well. So, it's going to be good.
How have you been coping with training? Have you managed to keep up your training, or are you taking this as an opportunity to have a bit of a rest in the off-season?
Oh, we sort of, just before coming from the States, we had like a week and a bit off, and everything sort of happened quite quickly. We were gearing up for a game and then heading to a captain's run. And then all of a sudden we got news that the game was cancelled. And then 2 days later, the competition was finished. So we had a week and a bit to sort of dwell on it and also have a little rest. But getting little trainings in every morning just to try and keep the mind active. Obviously, I have a lot of time now to reflect on a lot of things. So training, just haven't been doing any weights or anything, sort of just body workouts and stuff like that. But getting in the morning walks and afternoon runs. So it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I had a chat with Lima Sopawanga last week, and he was saying that, again, no weights, so he'll go back cardiovascularly very fit, but not as buff as he used to be.
Yeah, that's it.
So let's roll this all back to the beginning. Born in South Auckland,
Correct. Yes.
To Samoan parents. For those of you who don't know, we had a quick chat before the show that according to Wikipedia, Dwayne was born in Samoa.
Good old Wikipedia, eh?
Good old Wikipedia. So what's your first rugby memory?
Just growing up as a young fella, the old man was pretty big on rugby. So growing up, I played a lot of junior football and stuff like that. And after coming through, he sort of decided that I'll make the move to Pakuranga Rugby Football Club. And that's sort of where the rugby dream sort of came alive. I was coached by a great coach, Dwayne Polataivao, who now is coaching Wales.
Yes.
So he took me under the wing at the age of 19, and after a couple of games, he sort of set me aside and said, if you want to be a professional rugby player, you got to really stick to it and put your mind to it. And if I continue to follow him, he'll make me a professional rugby player. And sort of the journey started from there. 19 and at Pakuranga, I played right through the Prem Rugby Football Club and sort of started, growing and sort of got to the age of 25 and I was sort of getting frustrated just because it was hard to crack. At that time, Auckland was rich with halfbacks, and I could name so many.
A bit further. So you weren't in. You played first 15 at school.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. So I played first 15 at De La Salle College, and that's where I sort of played fullback at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I was actually a fullback. We had a great halfback at the time, so in order for me to get a bit of game time, I decided to make the move to fullback, and it sort of worked out well. We became first 15 champions, Auckland champions, and beat King's College.
Beating the cheating St Kents and.
Well, at the time, St Kitts weren't sort of well known as a rugby force as they are now. They did have a good team, but probably not as great as what they are now. So, yeah, we sort of built a team which we grew up together from age grades right through from 15 through to 15, and that team sort of stuck together. Probably the best sort of rugby I played, because you're playing with mates you see Monday to Friday, and then you see them on Saturday as well. So 6 days of the week you sort of grow with them, and then you play rugby with them. So that was probably some great memories.
Yeah, that's listening to or looking at the move for provincial rugby, and that for the younger grades they're not doing prep rugby or making it competitive because again, it's about playing with your friends. It's not necessarily
Yep.
about being mates, and that's what keeps you in the game. So it's great that you sort of grew up with all those guys together. Any of those other guys make it as professional players?
Yeah, there was a number of guys there. Kalakulio Hifo, he represented Canterbury. There's a number of, if I could go through the photo, there's a number of them that sort of moved on and played some professional football of some sort. There's a number of them in Japan as well who are still going, and one of them who represented Japan, Tim Lafaele, he was the centre. So yeah, a number of them moved on and played some great football.
Oh, so as you say, a bit of a stacked first 15.
It was, mate. It was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, like I said, it was probably the greatest memories you have as a young fella going through the rugby grades, because you play your best rugby with your mates. So that was the beauty about it.
And so about 19 is when you made the full-time transition to halfback then?
Yeah, so I was always a halfback at heart, but because I wasn't growing. I was sort of stopped growing, I think, about 12. So had to make the transition to halfback because I wasn't getting any bigger. And the old man sort of said that you'd probably make a better move at halfback. So sort of made that move at 19, and I was sort of found out playing sort of club rugby from Wayne Pivac at the time, and he was sort of impressed and said I had a lot of things to work on as well if I wanted to make it to the next level.
So then you got your break with Tasman in the end, not with Auckland. How did the move down there come about?
Yeah, so after a championship win, 2013 with Pakuranga, made the move down to Nelson. I was at the time I was Kieran Keane and also Gary Stevens, who noticed me playing, so asked if I could make the move, and was in the high performance unit at the time. Also went down to play for the Crusader Knights, who also were watching at the time, coached by Scott Robertson, and a couple of names that I see now coaching the Crusaders team. So that was awesome, great experience.
Decent things, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a bit of an eye-opener, only because you see the professional setup and why they're so good, why the championships, things like that they have are just built on hard work and also just the culture. So I had my break there in Nelson. I didn't really end up playing for Tasman. It was a bit of an injury-ridden year, 2014, and then sort of made the move back up to Auckland. 2015, was a bit frustrated with injuries that year down in Nelson. And funny enough, 2015 was probably the break that I needed.
Just the one question about Scott Robinson. One of the things that we've heard about that he apparently keeps secret is his thing about doing different themes each week as part of training. Was that something that you came across with working with him?
What I really found was just a relationship he built with players. He's quite a cruisy sort of bloke, and that's what I noticed my first 2 weeks there. Was he sort of broke down the barriers of having that coach and sort of the boss mentality. He was just real down to earth. Just had a friendly approach to players. As you said, I've seen as of late the themes that he has for his teams, and I didn't really experience that. But it was just more the way he broke down that he was just part of us, not the hierarchy sort of thing. So he was real. Had a good sense of getting the best out of players.
And then, as you say, you came back to Auckland, looking on your LinkedIn profile, you've you came back as a sales rep for Stowers Containment Solutions. So
That's it. That's it, Paul. So, oh man, I give a lot. I'm grateful for them. During that time, I worked 4 years for Stowers Containment Solutions as a sales rep. And as I said, I got to the age of 25 where I sort of reached a patch where I was like undecided whether I wanted to chase the dream of either becoming a professional rugby player or, working a full-time job. And at that time, I had a great job, great bosses, and Jamie Phillips and also Jamie McEwen, and also a great work colleague in Grant Falconer. So a big shout out to him because, during the time I was sort of undecided. I enjoyed my job, and that's where sort of the break came. Where Auckland Rugby, I was playing club footy for Pukeronga back again, and playing club and enjoying it. But I didn't just, I was finding it frustrating because I just felt like, 25 now, do I still want to do it or not? I had a good job, and then the break came. Auckland Rugby had a few injuries at halfback, and got a call from Paul Feeney at the time, and said if I was interested in playing on the Sunday, I think it was. I thought it was a bit of a joke because it was sort of, I think it was Thursday, told me to turn up to training, and then had 2 trainings and then played on the Sunday. So debuted against Bear Plenty at the time. So it's good.
wow, that's that is a very quick turnaround, and that appears to the number of players who say I got the call and I thought it was a joke. So
Yeah.
how many joke calls have you had from teammates over the years about this kind of? Is this sort of this rife within rugby clubs?
It must be just a New Zealand thing because, man, you just, you probably think it's one of the boys or something like that. Nowadays, you're getting like, calls off, WhatsApp or messages like that off coaches. So you just don't know, or emails. You rather trust emails rather than a call. But no, yeah, it's just a common thing, I think, for footy.
And then looking at your Twitter profile, you got married the following year. So congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
And
So, Rick, you're up.
no, I was going to and still with your wife now, and so she's travelled with you around the UK and the States as you've done your travels as a family.
Yeah, that's it. Got 2016 was a massive year for me. Personally, got married, and then not long after, made my debut for Samoa.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge year for us. Managed to play for Samoa at the same time just after marriage. So we didn't really get to have a honeymoon. A lot of people think, oh man, that's the beauty of getting married. Straight away go to a honeymoon, but we didn't. I had to go on tour to Samoa and also Fiji. Beauty about it, rugby has just taken me to so many places, and my wife has followed as well. So yeah, that's the blessing in disguise, I guess.
And so how did they? So it came about because of your Mitre 10 Cup performances for Auckland that you got the Samoan call up.
Yeah, well, I think I was on track they were following me quite a bit during the club season, and at the time, Samoa didn't really have many halfbacks behind Khan Fotuali'i. There was a number of us young guys, and at the time, Alama Yeremia, who was the coach, and he's currently the head coach for Auckland, took a chance and, gave me the opportunity to play for Samoa. And the rest is history, I guess. 16 caps later, and it sort of opened the door for me being in here and speaking to you. I don't think I'd be speaking to you if it wasn't for my Samoa international games and stuff like that.
So did you know Armo through the Auckland development systems, or was it or not?
No, he was. I think at the time he was with Hurricanes and sort of left them, and then he was full time with Manu Samoa. So I think he came down and watched a couple of club games, and then sort of kicked off from there.
And for international listeners, there's a very large Samoan and also Tongan population in South Auckland. That's where actually quite a few of the Samoan and Tongan internationals do come from. So it's not a surprise really that he did a scouting trip down to that area to have a look and see who was playing and who was available, I guess.
That's it. I think he probably got word from other coaches, and as you know, there's a number of island boys around in South Auckland. So probably the best way to recruit is within South Auckland. A lot of other areas as well. So yeah.
So then you had a couple of seasons with Auckland and then moved to Doncaster, the
That's it.
sunny north of England.
I want to say sunny. You probably know that, Paul. Geez, it was definitely an eye opener. You went go from one extreme to the other. I think I left Auckland. I was beaming like 26 degrees, and then went straight to Doncaster, and it was -2 or 3, I think it was. It was an experience in itself, but one I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I know. I was born in Pontefract, which is not very far from
Oh, okay,
Doncaster or
okay.
from Donny, as it's as a lot of people will refer to it up there.
Yeah, yeah.
So Doncaster Knights obviously playing the RFU Championship, so the second tier in England. Now I've heard lots of probably about 2 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago there were rumours that Doncaster Knights were trying to make the move up to the Premiership level. Did you see that when you were there? Were they an ambitious club?
Yeah, very much so. They had great management, great owners in place, and a very ambitious club. Going through some tough times of obviously victories or just games and winning matches. But yeah, very ambitious, and they're looking to grow and continue to recruit well. And I think they're just going through a phase of change with a number of coaches leaving, number of players retiring as well. So they're probably going through a good phase now where they'll chop and change and have a few new players and new coaches and push towards hopefully, depending on what happens with the championship now, relegation and stuff like that. I think there's a number of changes going ahead. And yeah, just hopefully they can continue to grow and be the good club they are.
Now, one of the big sort of moves that New Zealand made probably about 20 years ago now is to make sure all their pitches were solid and helps with your footing and your running. I know that the Premiership teams have improved their pitches over the sort of last 5-6 years. How did you find the pitches in the Championship? Did you end up with many mudlogged games, or was it all firm underfoot?
It was actually pretty good. I think you'll notice that a lot of the pitches in the Premiership and also in the Championship as well, they're moving towards the 4G pitches, which is a bit like AstroTurf. Sort of good for all seasons of rugby, and you'll know for sure that back in the UK, the field or the weather itself plays a big part in how games are determined. I think by maybe 2 fields we played on, was one of them was just a mud bath, and that was it. A lot of the pitches there are good quality, and that's the beauty about the change in rugby in UK is that they're starting to play a bit of an expansive style of footy, exciting style of footy, and you can see it in the Premiership. It's exciting to watch.
Yeah, I think probably Bath is the only one that still has a bit of a messy pitch, but that's because they play basically in a public park.
Oh, right.
And hence they've been struggling to get planning permission to build a real stadium, a proper stadium there.
Right.
But that looks like it's coming through now. So that they should be the last one. Yeah, I mean a lot of pitches in the UK now are either, well, especially the Premiership, are either the hybrid pitches, the woven ones, or the 4G. It seems to gain. You seem to get sort of 4G pitches need to be a bit Marmite in the fact that players either hate them or love them. Quite a few of the forwards complain about grazers and things. How do you find the 4G pitches?
Yeah, it was actually quite tough. It's probably harder on the joints, I'd say. But in saying that, it's good for backs as well because you probably see the ball a little bit more rather than a rainy sort of mud bath. But I think it's a good thing, especially over in UK when you just don't know what the weather's gonna do. So no, I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I know players like Jack Nell, for example, has definitely been rested for various 4G games because he has had knee issues, and so the Chiefs will pull him back from a game. I remember, European Champions Cup game against Cardiff, I think it was, and also a game against Saracens, 2 sides that have those 4G pitches he was deliberately rested for. So yeah, as you say, on the joints can be
definitely
can really hurt. Did you manage to get to see much of Europe while you were there, or do much travel?
No, I was actually no, I was actually there for a short season. We got in to prepare myself for the World Cup. I was due to do a little bit of travel because at the time I wasn't sure if I was going to make the World Cup squad. So I did. Was planning to, and then all of a sudden had to come home quickly to get the body ready after sort of a long slog with Doncaster. And obviously, the championship can be some big boys, big bangers there. So the body tends to take a bit of a beating. So didn't really get to travel as much as I wanted to.
Oh, maybe follow
Hopefully soon.
Sockwanga's Instagram account. He seems to be getting around quite a bit. While he's up there. So the level of rugby in the championship, how did that compare to say Mitre 10 Cup? More attritional or a different style?
Yeah, definitely a different style. A lot more set piece. Mitre 10 Cup, the ball's hardly on the ground, and it's always in the air. A lot of offloads and stuff like that. Whereas the championship, you go on the set piece, you go into driving mauls, you go into scrums, which can, for dominant teams, the ball in the scrum will be in there for a while. So definitely different styles, but you can see, obviously, as we spoke about the pitches, it does change the game and the styles of the games, and teams with 4G pitches or stuff like that tend to play a high level, quick style of rugby. So just sort of depends, I think, on the team and the structures and the styles the coaches want to implement in the games.
So coming back to your talking about this, your Samoan games sort of started in 2016. You've scored 4 tries for Samoa, a couple against Australia. I noticed,
yeah, that's it.
Unfortunately, a losing cause in that game.
Yeah.
But so you started in 2016, so that's part of this Rugby World Cup cycle, and then you got selected for the Pacific Nations Cup that in 2019. So that must have been you knew you were kind of in with a good shout for going to Japan at that point.
Yeah, that's it. I sort of came back after Doncaster and sort of prepared myself after getting indication that I wasn't going to be involved in the Pacific Nations. Obviously, you just don't know. It's a bit of a toss on the coin sometimes. Injuries can happen and stuff like that, but best way to prepare yourself is just to be the fittest you can be, the strongest you can be. So after the Pacific Nations, sort of announced the team and had a meeting, and it was nerve-wracking times because you just didn't know. It was either you're going to get a walk away with a bit of tears, or tears of joy, or tears of sadness. So so after Pacific Nations named the team, and we're preparing ourselves for a test match against New Zealand Barbarians and also the Australian team as warm-ups before the World Cup.
And so when you actually get told the Rugby World Cup squad, you actually were all together in the same room at the same time?
Yeah. So, sorry. So they, I think initially they called guys into the room one by one, and obviously get the news that you're either a yay or a nay. And then obviously you announce the team in a team meeting before it hits media.
Yep. And then for someone who didn't sound that confident of going to a World Cup, you started 3 out of the 4 games. So I mean, that's kind of first choice, or if you started to go from being I'm not sure if I'm going or not to being kind of first choice, starting 3 out of 4 games. That's you must have done some good work in camp.
Oh, I think I probably just try to work the hardest I could. The thing with rugby, and probably just my experiences, was you're just never sure, never sure in. So I always took it as just work hard, and if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, then at least you've done something to the best of your abilities. And as I said, I was never sure right through till probably I was confirming that I was definitely in. Even when a coach was there, sort of want to hear it from the head coach himself. So hence why I was always just making sure I just did my best.
And so, what are your memories of Japan? Was that your first time in Japan?
Yep, first time, and you probably heard from most of the boys that did make it to the World Cup, or even just commentators and stuff like that. People were just awesome. I've never seen people just embrace rugby in itself and also the culture. They're just great people to be around. The fans were awesome. They probably didn't know anything about rugby, but they embraced it and they just got involved as a country. Can't go past the food. Top notch.
So, any sort of particular favourite memory from the Rugby World Cup, or from either playing or off the pitch?
Probably more so just playing. The crowd were always. Both teams had great support from the crowds and its stuff, and that was probably what I took away, was just the experience of the crowd, being amongst thousands of people, and also just rubbing shoulders with some players that you see on TV, and you're just like, oh, I'd love to shake his hand or just say hello. That was probably the beauty about it.
Did you try and swap jerseys with anyone in particular, or did you keep your jerseys?
Funny enough, I missed I got the Japanese jersey. That was a bit of a highlight, just because the halfback at the time, he was playing quite well through the World Cup, so I was pretty stoked to get a jersey from him.
That's cool. So that happened then, and then off to Utah for Major League Rugby. I guess the connection there was the coach, the assistant coach from Samoa. Was that how that call up came, or how that contact came?
Yeah, I mean, we briefly spoke at the World Cup. He did say he had an opportunity in the MLR, but he didn't really mention what team. Mm-hmm. So sort of sat back, and then the World Cup sort of finished around September, October, and I didn't really hear much until just before Christmas. I got a call from the CEO of Utah Warriors, and that sort of came around, and negotiations and chats started, and ended up at Utah Warriors in the new year. So yeah, that was, and also the connection with Chris Latham. I worked with him for 4 years with Samoa, and yeah, it was hard to go by. So I had someone I knew there, and also a couple of players who I knew as well. So that sort of started, and hence why I was at Utah.
And the sense I'm getting here is that you kind of had the playing with Auckland with perhaps not the certainty, a trip over on a 1 year contract or a short term contract to Doncaster. You go to every World Cup. You've got nothing lined up afterwards. Mm-hmm. You get a sort of late call to Major League Rugby. How is that because I mean, that's obviously you're jetting around the world. It makes it very difficult for you to kind of set up any sort of, I guess, post rugby initiatives. It makes it very difficult if your wife works. How sort of taxing is that uncertainty? Because obviously you've got your All Blacks. They know they got contracts, but that level beneath it sounds a bit
bit of security.
Yeah, the security. Yeah.
I think it has been tough. Like over the last probably 2-3 years, the uncertainty was definitely there, and hence why there was times where I just thought whether I wanted to carry on playing football or pursue other careers in which sales, which I enjoyed thoroughly, and I could easily just talk to my old managers and bosses and ask if I could have a job back, which I definitely do it. But I think the support system I've had in the last few years has been great. My wife, she's been the cornerstone of why I could carry on playing football and also just pursuing it. There's been many a times where I've wanted to give up and just come home and settle down. But I think you rather just not die your dreams. You want to try and pursue them and achieve them as much as you can.
And does your wife have a career?
She does. She works a full-time job for Housing New Zealand, and she's been doing that for a number of years now. So, she's been cornerstone why I continue to pursue rugby, and now I've got a bit of security for the next sort of 2-3 years with the Utah Warriors. So it's something I've been working towards. There have been times where you just think it's not going to happen, but it's taken me a wee while, but rather now than never. So it's been good.
So you've got a multi-year contract with the Utah Warriors.
Yep. Yes,
Oh,
correct. Yep.
the so looking at the results, I'll be honest. When I previewed the Major League Rugby, I didn't give the Utah Warriors much of a chance this year because there was a
Fair
lot of
enough.
turnover in the squad. They were on the same side as Legion, Seattle Seawolves, basically
Hmm.
the established successful teams. But you finished. I mean, obviously we only had 5 rounds, but you finished second in your conference. You had
Hmm.
a good start to the season.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mixed start, and probably our coach would say the same thing. Is that if he had it again, yeah, he probably finished the way we finished, which was second. San Diego was far ahead in terms of points and stuff like that, but we're gutted because 5 weeks into the competition, we never had a home game. We played all our away games, and the week of before the old cancellation, we were having our home game. We were preparing for our home game, so we were ready for a great season. And there was a change, the high turnover in staff and especially players as well. So there was definitely that mentality of Utah being the team of first half and also fading away in the second half. And I think we definitely changed that as a whole, both on and off the field. It was definitely a culture sort of thing that we needed to build at Utah. And, we're building well for a great season. And obviously our goals were playoffs, but quickly changed before the all cancellation. We wanted to win the competition. So, we're just definitely content with change. So.
Yeah, for those people that aren't aware of the Major League Rugby sort of teams, Utah's got one of the more Pacific cultured teams there, and has been accused in the past of perhaps playing a bit relying on individual skills rather than necessarily playing sort of more of a cohesive team. So
Hmm.
getting that 3-year contract, getting a bit of continuity, that'll really help the side to get some to be able to build a team because I say it has had quite. I mean, Kurt Marath was the kind of linchpin in the first season, but it's kind of I say yeah, there's been a lot of change there. So it looks like they're heading in the right kind of direction.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
I mean, you did have one home game. You just played it in
In
Vegas.
Vegas. I mean, yeah, you could probably say that. It was a couple of hours drive down to Vegas. So
Well,
we
it
definitely
was
had a good
officially a home
home
game,
crowd
but
coming through.
on the
What's that, sorry?
according to yeah um, the yeah. So you had victories over the New England Free Jacks and the 2 times champions. In fact, the only champions ever, Seattle Seawolves. I've heard a lot of good things about the stadium up there in Seattle. What
Hmm.
do they good a good atmosphere, good crowd up there?
Oh, crazy! It was just it was a daunting area to go to. It was quite cold and misty, and it was dark, and we were playing the lights under the lights, and the lights just seemed like it was fading as it went during the game. The atmosphere, yeah, they definitely spoke about how the crowd plays a massive part in getting their team up, and we definitely felt that. Ended up being a 90-minute game where, it was extra time and injury time and stuff like that, and boys managed to pull through and get the winning try in the last seconds of the game. So yeah, it was awesome. It was definitely something to that you experience, through your rugby career and playing that tough team. They're definitely massive. They're huge. So you could see the recruitment was massive in Seattle.
Yeah, I know Tony Ridnell from the USA Eagle, who
Right.
who's up there, and well, not officially part of the organisation, but I know he helps out. Yeah, it's been good to see the major the different cultures in the different stadiums. So that obviously up in Seattle, it's very noisy and loud.
Hmm.
I don't think he played NOLA, but they have because obviously it's New Orleans, they have a jazz band in the crowd.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
the Gilgronis, yeah, are also looking at putting on a lot of
Oh, and massive over there. Like we played them, and they've got a whole heap of signings and just new facilities, and you can see that club doing great things. I think just Major League as a whole, the game is growing in the States, and we're probably in a period of time where after all this settles, or all the dust settles, you probably see a new rugby sort of globally. I think it's going to change massively. So.
Yeah, I was talking with the CEO of Bay of Plenty, and he was sort of suggesting, he
Right.
was sort of pointing out that the way rugby is changing is it's changing from being union controlled or union led to being investor controlled or investor
Hmm.
led, and we're seeing that with Major League Rugby, with the Global Rapid Rugby, and obviously some of the clubs, or the clubs up in Europe as well, and that's because whilst obviously the USA Rugby has gone into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, that Major League Rugby is in a totally different space. They've, from what I understand, they've agreed to fulfil all of your contracts, i.e., not ask you to take pay cuts, which shows that they're on a solid. They've got some solid financial grounding, and unlike pro rugby, which preceded it, is set for has definitely got long term views and long term vision for the sport,
Hmm.
rather than just being guys trying to come in and make a quick buck off the game. Um, I was wondering if you could talk about the way the Americans make it more of an event than just a game to go to, because I've heard things like tailgate parties. We've talked about the jazz band, all these sort of stuff that the Gilgronis put around the game. How much are you aware of that as a player?
Or you sort of hear about it, only because previous years they sort of compare it to how the NFL is and stuff like that, or the NBA. Going up to Austin, that was a bit of an experience in itself. They sort of had a lighting sort of party before the game, uh, and also just it was my first experience in having 20-minute breaks. Oh, sorry, not 20-minute breaks. Like every the 20 minutes, first quarter. So have like I think it's 5 minutes, and then
So
and then that's sort of
officially
TV
having
rights and
officially it's having hydration breaks, not ad breaks.
yeah, exactly. So for I'm sure for the rugby players it's pretty good. Especially the front rows, they get a bit of a breather. But yeah, that was a bit of an eye opener as well. And sort of just the pre-match, interviews that go on, and also post-match. Before the game, as captain, you're experiencing interviews from left, right, and centre. So, it's all sort of a sideshow, but in saying that, it's also growing the interest of the game. And in the States as well, you can see guys who come up to you after the game who've never watched rugby before, but they embrace the hits and the tackles and not wearing any pads. It's just a mouth guard and a headgear sometimes. So, um, yeah, it's just entertaining for them. But you can see why the game will grow, and it will continue to grow in the States.
So have you captained before? Or is this the first time you've been captain of the side?
Definitely the first time I've captained a professional team, but I've captained, Pakuranga in the past, and club teams as well.
So one of the things also I've heard players talk about is how structured their pre-match routines are, and how they don't like that being messed up with. Uh, as captain, you just said you've got to go do interviews. You've got to give a pre-match talk. Those kind of things. Have you had to adapt your match day routines to take that into account?
Not entirely. I'm pretty relaxed before a game. I sort of try and not let anything sort of get to me, and it's just all part of it, I guess. I learned to embrace whatever sort of comes your way, and I think if you let it get to you, it sort of affects the way you one prepare for a match and two play a match. So I guess if you hit with whatever opportunities, or just take it and just not let it affect myself, especially, and also just trying not to show that to the team, that if something is affecting me, that it doesn't affect the team.
Because I talked to Joe Edwards before he moved over to Bordeaux when he was at Auckland,
Yep,
and he was talking
good
about
old team.
how he would sort of get at the ground at the set time, go warm up. He had his his 3 work-ons that he wanted to do during the game, and you could see it was very structured and very regimented as to how he gets into the right headspace. You're much more relaxed than that. You don't you're not thinking of all those. You're not quite so structured in your match day preparation.
Oh, I sort of have my little black book. Previous games, I'll probably write down 3 key things that I probably want to work on, and probably that'll be a judgment of the last game that I played, and also work-ons from the coaches. And those are the big 3 things that I sort of tick off after a game or review on Monday, if I've achieved it or not. So yeah, I'm pretty big on that. But anything around sort of preparing for a game, I'm pretty relaxed. Like if it comes to going out of my time to do little things as a captain, then that's just all part and parcel of the team and whatever I have to do for the team and media or whatever.
Yep. The other thing I've heard about people when they're talking about captaincy is that they have to understand that they feel they need to understand more about sort of kicking games, kicking where they are on the pitch. They have to want to get involved in line-out calls, deciding obviously if you kick sticks or not. Has that been a bit of a learning curve as to understanding some of the sort of, I guess, overarching tactics of the team more? Or as a halfback, is that kind of part of your game anyway?
Yeah, it is. Probably both in the sense that halfbacks are in probably the best position because you are pretty much the boss of the forwards, and then you get that connection with the 10 as well as drivers of the team. So that was probably already ingrained in the 9 to know the kicking game and the game plan and structures of the team. So and then obviously with captaincy as well, it's deciding whether the 10 is comfortable to take a kick 50, 60 meters out or not, and pin the corner and trust the forwards to do their job. So yeah, probably just as a 9, it's already ingrained to know that stuff.
Now, one of the things I've noticed when TG Perinara is given the captaincy, he's, let's be honest, a bit gobby and talks a lot to the referee already. With the captain's armband, it looks like kind of like, not only do I do it, but I'm allowed to do it now. And he goes a bit
exactly.
more. Have you had to watch could have moderate how much you talk to the ref?
Probably just depends. You get a feel before the game of what the ref was like. We probably had 2 Kiwi refs, and they were good. They kind of knew I was from Auckland and from New Zealand. So we had Jamie Nutbrown. He probably, back in the days, he played halfback as well. So he knew that all 9s are bloody chatterboxes. So you sort of push as hard as you can, and until you sort of get the warning that you probably have to shut up. So. I try and push the boundaries as much as I can, but you also crack a joke as well, just to sort of break the ice and get to know the ref a little bit more.
Oh, very good, very good. That's a name I do recognise. So it's good to see the Kiwi refs getting over there. What about the kind of level of rugby? How would you compare it? Is it minor 10 level? Is it more, or is it kind of Auckland top club level? Where would you say that the level of Major League Rugby is currently?
Yeah, it's probably in terms of physicality, it's right up there. Physicality is pretty tough. Definitely get sore bodies and stuff like that. The level, I'd say it's quite close to Mitre 10 in terms of the playing style and certain teams. But yeah, I reckon in a couple of years it'll definitely be right up in the Premiership and Super. Definitely with the class of players that are coming across as well. You're seeing a lot more guys who are Super Rugby international and also Mitre 10 as well. There's a number of Mitre 10 Cup players already in the competition.
Yeah, and also there's rumours that Chris Robshaw, the ex-England captain, is on his way on his way over next year. You've had Bastareaud there this year. Obviously, the Beast is there with
New York,
DC. Who else was over there? No.
Ranger. Yeah, he was with Colorado.
Colorado, that's right. Yeah, I was going to say, was he with you? He wasn't. No, he was with Colorado. That's right.
Yep.
So quite a few names that people would recognise are heading over there. The other people that people don't get about Major League Rugby, about sports in the US as a whole, is the US is a big place. Right? Sounds a bit. It sounds a bit stupid to say, but How did you find the travel impacting your sort of the week to week preparation?
It was actually quite taxing, but you sort of mentally prepare for it before the season. I can only speak for Utah because the first 5 weeks we had 5 away games. And that was purely weather driven. In Utah, it was still snowing, even to the point where we were coming. There was back home from Utah, there was a bit of snow there. So hence why they pushed our home game up till about March. But the travel in itself, for me personally, I think it was awesome because I got to see a lot of the US in a short space of time. I mean, that was only 5 weeks to my stay, and it was a great experience. But over time, you probably think, the travel does get to you, and you tend to have short weeks, and then you're back on a plane and stuff like that. So it probably can be a little bit taxing on the body, but also mentally as well, because you're pretty much living out of a suitcase.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was a bit surprised you actually travelled all the way back to Utah every week, and whether you'd actually sort of go on tour, as it were,
Mm.
for a couple of weeks. Yeah, yourselves obviously you have 5 games in the trot away. Um, we talk about Toronto Arrows; they play all their away games first, and then play all their home games afterwards, or they did last year,
Mhm.
in that kind of order. So, and then the flip side applies to the sort of Texan teams where it gets too hot towards the end of the season to play. So
Yes.
they play all their games at home first, and then
Yeah.
afterwards. So the places you went to, so you went to Austin, Colorado, Atlanta, which I've been to,
Oh,
Seattle,
okay.
and also that game in Vegas as well. So which was your favourite experience out of those 5 places?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'll probably say Vegas, only because it's what you see on TV is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a definitely city that never sleeps, and it was a great experience and stuff. So, we were there for two games. We had a preseason there, and then also that game as well against All Glory. So, oh, sorry, DC. So it was no, it was definitely
Free Jacks.
probably Vegas. I'd say, yeah, Free Jack. Sorry, yes.
Yep. The no, yeah, you didn't come across the beast in actual game, probably thankfully. The
No, we watched him live actually, and Jesus, he's a big boy. He's definitely a big boy. So we seen him put away a few guys, and it was probably a good thing we didn't get to play them eventually.
So for those people who weren't following the major, what they had a basically about they tried to put a whole round of games in Vegas in one of the opening weekends of the season. So yeah, so you say you got to meet and see the other teams even if you didn't get to play against them,
Yeah,
per
correct.
se. Um, the Yeah, I think that's probably most of my things. But so you're lined up to go. So you're lined up to go back again for the season, which I guess will kick off in probably what, January time. So
Yeah, well,
what's your plans for the
there's an
rest of the year?
introduction of two new teams as well, so we're unsure when the season will start. And obviously, with all that's going on, we're just unsure when the travel bans are going to be lifted and stuff like that. So for the time being, it's just making sure to tick the boxes and continue to train. Coach messaged and said, he's deciding whether preseason will be a little bit earlier or a little bit later. So just all depends on what goes on in the next sort of couple of weeks or months, and then we should have a fair idea.
It's looking like we're going to have probably the club season played, perhaps instead
Okay,
of my 10 cup season. So are you planning to get to have some runouts with Pakaranga again?
definitely. I'm home now, and I've been a while since I last played for them. So I've already given the coaches a heads up that I'm home, and I love the opportunity to don the jersey again and play a couple of club games, and we'll just see where it goes. I'm just happy to be home, and then take every opportunity I can while I'm home.
Oh, well, I might pop up and watch Pakaranga again. And the being well, so well, I'll be honest. One of the things is that I cover the major league. I cover the Mitre 10 Cup rugby, so I went to
Oh,
22 games with a media pass last year.
hmm.
And if it doesn't happen, then I'll be doing a similar thing, but for club rugby. So I'll be getting around as many club rugby games as I can.
That'd be
Obviously,
awesome.
the volume is kind of crazy, so it'll be hard to do them all. But yeah, that's what I kind of
Your
do.
plan is, yeah.
My plan is, yep. I've gone blank.
Do you think Mitre 10 will come back into fruition, or do you think it's a bit of tough to tell?
I think stuff. I think we'll probably find that Minor 10 doesn't happen this year
Right,
because, well, basically for financial reasons. I think the club season has to happen. Otherwise, too many clubs will go bust. They need to get people in the
right,
bars, drinking, and get money over the bar to keep all the keep the grassroots
ticking along.
ticking along.
Hmm.
And if you've got all your players playing grassroots, how can you play Minor 10 Cup at the same time as club rugby? So I wouldn't be surprised to see Super have a 10-week season, and then for the Super
Right.
players and All Blacks to go play club rugby, which would be a massive boost for the grassroots
Oh,
game.
hugely big for not only just that, just puts bums on seats for grassroots, and as you said, people in the bars buying beers. It just lifts that morale and also a financial sort of help for the clubs as well. So um, it'll be definitely a boost and much needed.
It'll be a much needed boost. The problem for me then is that rather than there being just 7 games a weekend to cover with the Mighty 10 Cup
Yeah, that's yeah.
plus the 6 Farah Palmer Cup games, is then I've suddenly got to try and cover like 100 games across the country.
Bit of travel. Good for you
So
traveling, but I guess it's it'll be 1 week here, 1 week there. So that's the downfall.
exactly, and we did have a plan, and so for those of you who are watching on the show, we did have a plan where I do have a guy down in Invercargill. I've got a mate, a couple of mates in Auckland, some somebody in Wellington as well. So we were going to try and get around, and also someone in Bay of Plenty. So we're going to try and get around as many of and I'm in Hamilton, of the sort of club games, get some interviews with players, get some interviews with coaches, and put it out there. So that's the kind of plan we had for the club season. Obviously, that's all been put on hold while we find out what's going on.
Yeah,
But
that's it.
yeah, we could very well be rolling that out for the second part of the year. So do stick around on the station. It'll either be on New Zealand Sports Radio or on DrivingMaul.com. We will be looking at covering as much of the club rugby as we can because I think there's a lot of interest there,
Oh,
and there's a great product there as well. I mean, you look at some of the players that came over. I mean, Hamilton Burr came over from Edinburgh. The academy was playing for Hautapu alongside people like Jacobson or the Jacobson brothers last year. Luke Jacobson gets called up to the All Blacks, and suddenly he's in the Waikato squad. So there's a lot of guys, a lot of really good players at that level who, if they get an opportunity, they can really show it. And I think a lot of it comes down to getting that opportunity. I mean, look what Carl Tuanafakafi did as an All Black, and he was only a club player. One injury or a couple of injuries in the Chiefs squad, and suddenly he's a super player, and then he's off to the Rugby World Cup or off on the All Blacks tour. So, yeah, a lot of it comes down to opportunity. So, as a player, do you kind of worry if someone else gets your jersey and has an opportunity because it could be over?
It's definitely something in the back of your mind, but I guess if you're ticking the boxes and probably being as fit as you can, there should be no issues. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of young fellas. The beauty about New Zealand rugby is you miss an opportunity. There's another guy who's itching to go. So it's about taking every opportunity and doing the best you can because you just never know. There's always young fellas coming through, and they're either fitter or stronger or faster, and it's just about trying to stay in your game and be the best you can be.
That's very true. Thank you very much. And the story we've heard today, that I think the one thing that I've taken out of it is that late developers like yourself, there is still a way, if you keep at it, of making it. I mean, getting that 3-year contract with Utah, as you say, Major League Rugby is going to go strength to strength. It's one of the leagues that has set itself up ready for growth next season, with keeping all its players and all its structures in place. And it's great to see a guy who who has developed later on and has come through and made it. So congratulations, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks so much for this opportunity, and I appreciate it heaps. And hopefully we'll catch up for a coffee or something after all this blows over, and we'll definitely catch up on some rugby.
Most definitely. And just actually one final thing: have you been taking part, or will you be taking part in the virtual MLR computer games, or the esports that's been taking part, or have you, as captain, have you delegated to another player to play those games?
Funny enough, the management asked me who would I suggest, and Alex Tucci, one of the boys, he's a bit of a gamer and loves a bit of social media as well, so he's taken on board. And funny enough, he was rugby 20. He managed to get Uruguay as the team in the rugby 20 game, so he did quite well. I think he lost in the quarterfinals, took Uruguay and beat a few good teams like South Africa and stuff. So big shout out to Alex Tucci and the Utah Warriors for doing that, and good cause.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time. I'd say
Thanks,
I'll be up to see you play for Pakuranga. Everybody, thank you very much for following the radio channel. I will be having other long form interviews, and also on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. we're kicking off Do You Know Sport, your radio sports quiz. So if you have a mate and you think you know your sport, get in touch and we'll get you on the show, and we'll see if you know your sports on that quiz show. So do join in that as well.